This meeting is being recorded.
All right, you good, Chris?
Hey everybody, it's Chris with the Secret Lair Comics, and we're here with a very special event for you. Welcome to the Golden Floppy Awards. This is the Secret Lair Comics 2024 Best of Awards. These are books that some of us are staff, have all picked, or some of us are customers of the store that we think were the best comics to come out in 2024. There's a handful of categories. We're each going to do our top three. This is actually inspired by my friends Chris and Oscar over at Lost in Comics, who do a yearly comic award show. I do want to give a quick disclaimer. Two of my picks are from 2023, but I started my list the day after the Lost in Comics show ended. So they wouldn't have been eligible for last year because we had already done the show. So they will be on this year's list. But without further ado, let's get into it.
And here is our illustrious panel. So we first have Chris Barkham, and we just thought it'd be fun to put a couple little facts up. Favorite all-time series and the first comic bought. This is Chris and his Forge's first appearance cosplay that he did a few years ago. That I participated in purchasing a little bit of that costume for him. We have Brandon here, and Brandon is in line waiting for a long time to see Jonathan Hickman, so that's what that's all about. And love Sandman, and first was with the Marvel Legends figure, getting the it was the Wolverine, right?
Yeah, the first solo Wolverine story.
Wolverine figure, yeah. We got Jimmy here. Love some Spider-Man. First one that he bought was Transformers 8, which is that Dinobots cover, and that's him with some like Scottish has-been actor. I don't know, some like Ian McGregor or somebody. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my new best friend, but I mean,
yeah, y'all just
right.
hanging. And that's this is me, Adam. Everybody knows me, love Fantastic Four. First one I bought off the shelf, Avengers 221. And that's
showing your age.
I know. Don't Google that to see when that started, but I'm old. And that's me with my my buddy George Perez all hugged up. So well, let's get into it. We have the underrated comic of the year. And first up, we have Chris.
All right, so underrated comic of the year. These are comics that are kind of like low key that might not be on your radar that are really good and well worth checking out. My number 3 pick was Grommets from Rick Remender, which should really tell you something if you've ever heard me talk, because I don't really like Rick Remender, but this is a fantastic comic. If you were a child of the 70s, 80s, or you're a big fan of that era skate culture, this comic is for you. It's hilarious. He got everything right in this book. I really can't say more like anything wrong with it. My only caveat for putting it 3 was it just didn't finish this year. It's going to finish, I think, either this month or next month. So, all right, Dark Spaces Dungeon. This is kind of like my horror, like little like low key. I don't think a lot of people got it. I think we only had 2 subs in the whole store for this. But this is Scott Snyder, Hayden Sherman. Scott Snyder, everybody knows, but Hayden Sherman, they're the new artist on the Absolute Wonder Woman book. They did Dark Spaces Wildfires last year with Scott Snyder. This was a fantastic horror book. It centers around this premise of a FBI agent who escaped from a serial killer that keeps all his victims in individual dungeons and just tortures them for years and years at a time. And he is now trying to help find a child who has been kidnapped by this killer. All right, this might be on a couple other people's lists, but Pine and Marriott. This was a fantastic comic from Kyle Starks. This was the detective comic. It's a crime book. It's a husband and wife. She is a retired police officer or detective. He's a retired MMA fighter, and they end up investigating a cult. This book was awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. It was a lot of fun to read issue to issue. Well worth the checkout.
Yeah, you turned me on to that one, Chris. It was a great read. Now we have Brandon.
All right, so coming in at number 3, Star Trek. Anytime Lansing and Scully writing, it's going to be great. But essentially, it's a sequel to Voyager, Deep Space Nine, somewhat of Next Generation. But I mean, it feels like you're picking up straight after Deep Space Nine. Feels like you're watching the show, reading the comics. I don't know how many Trek fans are in the store, but I guarantee you not enough people are reading this book. It's been fantastic.
Chris said too.
Yeah. All right, next is Conan the Barbarian. So Jim Zub has been doing great stuff. I mean, this is probably the best Conan has been since Roy Thomas wrote it in comics. I mean, just perfect sword and sorcery book. When Delator's doing the art, I mean, he just knocks it out of the park. It's been fantastic, each issue. Then next is Hellblazer Dead in America. I am a huge Constantine fan, and I will say Cy Spurrier has been writing the best Constantine probably since Garth Ennis wrote him. And I'm going to be talking about that book a lot tonight, probably. So,
Whoops, sorry. I skipped past that last thing, but now we got Jimmy. Sorry, I muted you. There you go.
Okay. Yeah. All right. My number 3 pick is Phoenix, Stephanie Phillips. I just think this is a little underrated, with the whole new launch of the X-Men. I think a lot of people are checking out Uncanny and the regular X-Men title. And at first I thought, a cosmic adventures. I'm not sure where they were going to go with this, but I can tell you that the writing has just been fantastic, where they've been pitting her up against some of the big cosmic baddies in the universe. So very well pleased with it, and actually I'm enjoying the story so far. So I don't think enough people probably are picking it up. Okay, my number 2 is the current Incredible Hulk. Philip Kennedy Johnson. What he is doing on this book is just simply fantastic. And what he has done is he has turned the Incredible Hulk into a horror book, and just the following, along with who he's getting pitted up against. He's going up against all sorts of monsters, and the storytelling has just been incredible. The art's been incredible. And I think this is really underrated. I think anybody who's ever went away from the Hulk a little bit should come back, because I think this is, what they're doing on this book's really good.
Yeah, the Hulk should be a horror book, so they're doing it right.
And my number 1 is Green Arrow. Joshua Williamson, how he's writing Green Arrow is probably it actually is probably one of my favorite books out of DC right now. The storytelling is solid. The art has been also very good. And where they're taking him, and with this whole family, the Arrow family, and involving Connor, his son, and Red Arrow, and just so far I've been very pleased with this book. I don't think enough people are probably giving it attention. I know everybody wants Batman and Superman, but don't skip out on this book. The storytelling is fantastic.
Jimmy's right. That is a fantastic, very underrated book from DC.
Cool. And then for mine, my first pick here is Dark Knights of Steel All-Winter. If I just don't know if a lot of people have been getting this, but it's an Elseworlds book, but it's kind of I don't know, one of those characters I've always just really liked is Deathstroke, and to be kind of like Viking fighting in the snow and that that kind of stuff. It's just been a really good read. My second one is Avengers Twilight. Have to highlight this little Chip Zdarsky sig that Jimmy got for me on that one. But Avengers Twilight, I felt, was like a series that didn't get enough props. It kind of flew under the radar in terms of like not a lot of hype behind it and that type of thing, but it was kind of like the Marvel story that we really needed to have and to do, I'd try to do something different. I just thought it was great. Definitely starts off with a big bang too. So,
Had 25 subs at our store.
oh, really? Okay. Well, don't hear anybody talking about it. So it's underrated to me. It should be like 50 people should be subbing that then. How about that?
Fair.
There you go. And my third pick is Ultimate Black Panther for underrated. I know people are really big into Ultimate Spider-Man and the Ultimates, which I mean, don't get me wrong, those are great too. But my personal favorite one to read has been Ultimate Black Panther, just because I'm a big Moon Knight fan. It's got a lot of Khonshu and Wakanda, lore and religion and kind of world building all in that African stage, which has just been really fun to read. So if you're uh, hesitant on some of it's interesting that they picked Ultimate Black Panther out of all the different things they could have done, like Ultimates and Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men makes sense. But just to throw Black Panther in there is kind of like a little bit surprising, but it's been really good. So I've enjoyed it. So this is our compilation of whatever everybody picked. It's kind of interesting. Nobody really, everything's underrated. Nobody picked anything different there. I do want to point out one thing with Brandon with Conan the Barbarian. I think if you're a big John Buscema Conan fan, that Della Torre or however you pronounce his name, like his art is so similar to John Buscema's, like it just feels like you're going right back into those like Conan and Savage Sword days when he was drawing that. So yeah.
It's so similar. We had somebody drop it because they thought they were ripping off Buscema on that book.
Well,
Yeah.
each his own, but it's great. I can't. I'm okay if somebody's doing Buscema. Should we move on to next?
Yeah, let's move on to the next
Okay.
one.
Okay, we're marking us safe from bad comics. We're picking our best publisher of the year. And Chris.
All right, I'm going with Dark Horse, number 3. I'm still a big fan of their Comixology thing they do. If you're not aware, what they do is basically Comixology has a deal with Dark Horse. They put out a miniseries on Comixology, then Dark Horse publishes it as a collected trade. There have been some great books that come out of this. Kurt Pierre is one of my favorite writers. He does a lot of stuff with this. I just read Money from him the other day, and if you want an Illuminati book, this was fantastic. But I really like what they're doing with that stuff. I like the way they handle some of their licensed properties as well. And of the Penguin distributed books, I really like the quality of their books a little more still. All right, DC. It's always weird when you put a big 2 on this list. I know a lot of people like to criticize it, but what Absolute has done in the All In initiative cannot be understated. DC literally took, with 3 books in the Absolute line, almost positions 1, 2, and 3 within the store, within subbing, like knocking off Ultimate Spider-Man and everything. My biggest problem with DC is they're using the same paper as Marvel, but DC is a better distributor who doesn't bang up the books as much as Marvel does. But DC is crushing it. And like Jimmy said, books like Green Arrow, low key, like super good, underrated that you're not checking out. The Zatanna mini that just wrapped up. There's a lot of good stuff coming out of DC. And I love that they condensed their line and they've really focused on putting quality work and people into these books to do these books for them, because everything is good. Even if you only have a limited budget, you're going to get a good book. And this one's an easy one. Like everybody picks Image, but it's Image Skybound. And I mentioned Skybound particularly because they are a sub imprint of Image, but Skybound is what is doing the Transformers in the Energon universe. And you can't argue with the powerhouse that is that universe right now. It's one of the best-selling things in the store. The stories have been fantastic. It has brought in a ton of new readers to comics, and it can't be underrated. But also at the same time, don't forget Image also has the Ghost Machine imprint from Jeff Johns. Like they have a lot of stuff going for them. And then they have their own books under their own line, which are almost always fantastic as well.
And Brandon.
Adam, I think you got mine backwards here.
Oh, did I flip them? Okay.
Yeah.
I might see a lot of flipping then. Sorry if I didn't understand.
But anyway, so Image is my number one. Pretty much the same reasons as Chris. The Energon universe has been huge. Everything's been great out of it. Ghost Machine, I mean, there's not been a bad Ghost Machine book in my opinion so far. Then you have some of my favorite series still coming out. A fair lot of Tinian written stuff also. I mean, so that's always a good thing for me, but definitely so.
Well, number 2 should always stay the same. So
yeah. So Distillery, I mean, to me, they have just been, even if not every book has been my cup of tea, what I've read has been great. But I mean, you got stuff like Spectrograph, Time Waits, White Boat. I'm going through a list here, making sure. One for Sorrow, awesome first issue. Missionary, also another great. I mean, everything I've read from Distillery, like I say, even if it hasn't been my cup of tea, it's been great. So.
And then your number 3.
Yeah, it's DC, and that's pretty much the same reasons Chris gave. I mean, launching the Absolute Universe, I will say for Black Label stuff has been fantastic. And then I got to give them props for bringing back Vertigo finally. They haven't done much with it yet, but I'm glad to see Vertigo back. So,
Cool. We have Jimmy.
All right. Well, I'm probably going to get a little bit of heat for this one. And I am the first one to criticize Marvel. However, they are still pumping out, all the characters that I grew up with, all the characters that I fell in love with when I was a kid. Marvel will probably always have that special place for me with Spider-Man and X-Men and there's times where I'm disappointed in Marvel because they do feel like they're putting quantity over quality. But at the same time, I am still getting, that need I have of all those characters that I want to still read about and I want to hear about. And they're still, they're putting out their Ultimate line, which is simply fantastic. So there's some good things about Marvel. And so I'm going to put them at number 3. Okay, Image. Well, like Chris said, we've got G.I. Joe, we've got Void Rivals, we've got, the Cobra Commander, Destro, Transformers. This whole Energon universe has just been simply fantastic. Every series that they've been putting out, and now that they're combining that, it's been great. I can't. Image is, just they're putting out good stuff. The quality of the books are good, and I mean the artwork is fantastic. The stories are great. So they're my number 2. And my number 1 is going to be DC Comics. And what's crazy is I used to be a Marvelite. But this year, DC has really impressed me with the Absolute line. Things like I said, like Green Arrow, Wonder Woman. I've never picked up Wonder Woman until this year. Action Comics, Superman, just the stories that they've been putting out, the quality of books they've been putting out. Their covers have been incredible. The artist that they're pulling has been incredible. So I'm placing DC at number 1 this year. Never thought I would, but I am.
Okay, great. For me, you're going to see a lot of similarities in these lists. I have Distillery kind of popping up, right at the end of like 2023, I guess it was. But with a lot of the books that they've put out, I have been selective on what I have been getting, but everything that I have been getting has been good. I know they're magazines that cost more. They're a little bit, but the stories and the art and what they've been putting together for what I've been reading has been really good. So, and they're just it's kind of a fresh, new, independent group that's joining this, and they have really great writers and artists in there. So it's been, it's been a competitive new company to kind of come in there. Number two for me has been DC. I'm not as big of a DC person generally. I'm also a Marvelite like Jimmy. But I will say, I think so far, even though we only have a few issues of some of the Absolute line, I think Absolute has they have done a better job than what Marvel did with Ultimate, the line initially. So I'm hoping they can keep that power going, but that's been, kind of a nice surprise. Also, I think it's nice, like DC has a smaller group of books. And I think that's been the problem with Marvel is like you get some that are really good and some that are not. And they have some extra fluff in there, but DC's kind of kept their line pretty small. I know they're going to expand some Absolute stuff in the next little bit, but hopefully they don't get too far expanded because it tends to be when quality goes down. And number one for me again is Image. Like a lot of things other people have said, with their Energon, Ghost Machine, and everything else that they've done has just been a great job. So, so I'm giving my golden floppy to Image. Hey, hit that from you guys. And so I think we have a lot of similarities here. Pretty much it looks like Image of DC made everybody's list. So and then a couple for Distillery, and then one Marvel, one Dark Horse. So interesting. Okay, now we're best horror comic. I'm not scared. Jamie might be scared. He's not as big of a horror guy, so we'll see what he can do. We'll start it off with Chris.
All right, I'm going with The Deviant. James Tynion's one of the biggest names in horror, has been for the last several years. This book is fantastic. It is a Christmas-themed serial killer story. My biggest qualm, the reason it's at 3 is just because it comes out so late. This book is constantly delayed. But I will tell you, I think it was issue 5 just terrified me as I read that whole story. So, like, what they're doing with this book is fantastic, especially if you like horror. And this is good horror. I already talked about this book when I did my underrated. I really thought that this was a good horror book. You kind of knew where the story was going to go and you knew what was going to happen, but this was a book you just went for the ride anyway with. If you liked this book, you were going to definitely go with it and enjoy it. It's kind of that horror. I'm not a great person to describe horror. This is not my genre per se, but it's kind of like the serial killer movie. You know what's going to happen at the end, but you're there for the ride anyway, and you're going to enjoy the ride if you get this book. All right, this is the darling of all of the books. I imagine this will be on other people's list. Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. Came out last year, finished up this year. Patrick Horvath is just one of the biggest up-and-coming names in comics. He's the writer and the artist. If you want a description of this book, think Arthur meets Silence of the Lambs. And again, this is a predictable book with a fantastic twist and a ride that, like, you're not going to drop this book. This book has been fantastic. Everyone we've referred this book to has picked it up, thoroughly enjoyed it. And the nice thing with this book is if you're not a fan of horror comics, but you like something like Stephen King or horror movies, this is an easy transitional book to just read.
Yeah, great series. Okay, Brandon.
All right, coming in number 3 is Spectrograph by James Tynion and Ord. It's almost kind of like a classic haunted house kind of feel to it. Body horror mixed in, amazing character work like you're always going to get with Tynion. Christian Ward's art is just fantastic. The way he does the body horror with the ghost is insane. Just altogether, like I say, haunted house, body horror, character work, everything you'll get out of a Tinian book, pretty much. I mean, number 2, Department of Truth. This has probably been one of my favorite series ever since it started coming out. I mean, I struggle to put it at number 1 because it's not, full on horror or anything like that, but it is a good psychological horror. I'm not going to say much because you're going to hear me talk about the book a good bit for the rest of the night. So. Another book you're hearing me talk about a lot tonight, Hellblazer: Dead in America. This has everything: gothic horror, body horror, cosmic horror. I mean, and the way Cy Spurrier writes that type of stuff, the way Campbell illustrates it, I mean, it's just amazing. It's unlike anything I've read, and like I say, simply the best since Scarface.
How would you say the Hellblazer compares to the old OG series? This one.
I'd say it's very close in the feel of it. Yeah, it's probably the most like when you start out with, like I say, Garth Ennis is close, and then Jamie Del Falco, I think's how he's pronounced his name. I mean, it feels like the spiritual successor to those two runs.
We got Jimmy.
All right. My number 3 pick is Batman Full Moon. And look at this. I mean, look at the art. And it glows in the dark. So what's more horror than that? It glows in the dark. But also, this story so far, we're only 2 issues in, but it is gritty and dark, and Batman basically gets his butt handed to him by this werewolf. And this doesn't seem to be just a normal werewolf. This guy is pretty strong. And I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but there is something that happens in issue 2 that I wasn't really expecting. And so I just like the aspect of Batman taking on the supernatural. And then you throw in Zatanna there, and it just makes a really good story. So far, 2 issues in, I'm very impressed with it. Okay, my number 2 is World Tree. And this book still has, it grips me because, I remember when, the internet came about, and everybody was worried, like, what is this internet, and what is there bad things going to happen because of this? But anyway, and the characters in this book just draw you in, and you're still guessing at, like, how are they going to stop this happening? And the main character, I think her name is Fear, is how you pronounce her name. It is just phenomenal. She's phenomenal. I mean, she is a naked chick that runs around killing people. It is, it just, and you can't guess at what's coming next. It just, crazy things are happening in the story that you don't know what's going to happen around the corner, next issue, what's going to happen. And so I'm looking forward to more. And here's an issue that I had picked up, and there's so many covers to this series. All of them have just been fantastic. I mean, the artwork they put into this book is crazy. So I really recommend the book. And my number 1 is going to be The Deviant. And I don't read a whole lot of horror, but this book is also, it's a horror movie, but it's also a mystery movie or mystery series. And unfortunately, like, I'm still waiting on the last issue to come in, but this book keeps you guessing, because I thought I knew who it was going to be, and the last issue shot that down. And so I'm still guessing at who the actual serial killer is that's dressing up as Santa Claus. But this book is violent, it's messy, and plenty of mystery. Yeah, it's captivated me. So I very much recommend the book.
Greetings, boys and ghouls. Pull up your electric chair and I'm going to make you scream with my number 3 pick. Sorry, just had to do that. So this is going to tick Chris off because it's not a true comic. But I am picking Web of Horror. So this is but there's a reason for it. So before what had happened, I'll have to give a little history here, but with hold on, we got a special appearance here that's coming in here. Sorry, gotta show everybody this. Batman, the absolute Batman just made an appearance, so thanks. So Web of Horror, and what really made me pick this was there's a lot of compilation books that were coming out this year. We had Epitaphs for Abyss, we have Hello Darkness, Cruel Universe, and there's been other like little one shots and other things that have been done. But with Web of Horror, so the reason I'm putting this on there, this is a book that came out just this year, and what it originally had was there were 3 original issues that came out in the 70s that were compilation horror story magazines that came out kind of after Creepy and Eerie were doing their similar things. This was a lot of the best artists kind of formed their own magazine to it. What initially happened, 3 issues came out. Everything went underground. The 4th issue, all the art had been turned in. And Bruce Jones and Bernie Wrightson went to try to meet with the publisher. He kept putting them off, and then they finally went back, and or Frank Bruner had come in and acted like he was the editor, got a bunch of the art from it. And then they Jones and Wrightson then came back to the office, and it was cleared out completely. There was just no desks, no anything, and all the art for all that stuff had been gone. So fast forward to about 20 I want to say it was like 2017, I think it was. A lot of the art started popping up on Heritage auctions that were the missing stories from these lost pages from future issues of Web of Horror. So this compilation book has the first 3, of course, that came out that were printed, but it has the number 4 issue that never was printed. And then a bunch of the lost stories that never came out. And I will say all of that's better than any of the other compilation stuff that came out this year. So that's why I felt like I had to put it on there. Sorry for the long issue with that, but just had to explain why that was on there. My number 2 is going to be Somna. This is a UK exclusive, got double remarked with Tula Lotay and Becky Cloonan on there. But I thought if you're a fan of the Witch movie, you know, if you're into that kind of like you know, period style horror and that type of thing, this was a great issue. Becky Cloonan and Tula Lotay do amazing job with the art turning off. I know Chris and I both got some panels from it, so we're excited about that. But I really love that book. I thought it was so well done. And then my number 1 is also Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. And Jimmy got us hooked up with the SIG from New York this year, so appreciate that, Jimmy. But that, like Chris said, you know, it's kind of Berenstein Bears, or however you want to say it, Richard Scarry, all those like little child kitty looking art kind of stuff meets horror. There's some real big shocks at the ends of some of the issues that you're just like, oh my gosh, I wasn't expecting that out of this book. So really great, really surprising. And Horvath does all the writing and art. You know, we'll see what he's planning on doing next. So that's my horror. That gets my, I got to show this since I had to buy it. So there's my golden floppy. So there's our lists.
A lot of James Tinian. A lot of James Tynion.
Yeah. He's doing his thing, isn't he?
I think this is the first category we had two of the same number ones.
Yeah, I think you're right. And Deviant showed up a few times. Yeah, good stuff.
Well, this category's definitely more diverse. I mean, we have more of a selection on this one.
Yeah. And I know Chris didn't like I told Chris, I was like, I think a lot of good horror came out this year. He was like, I don't know about that, but it does. I think that shows like some of the diversity there, that there's been a lot of decent stuff to pick from. So that's always like one of my favorite categories to think about. So moving on. Okay, we got cover of the year. So these I do have some art for all of these too. So we'll start sharing that. So Chris's pick, Animal Pound. Boom, boom, boom.
Yep, I went with Animal Pound number 3. This is the Jorge Fornes cover. Ironically, I have the version of this, which looks way better without the art, without the lettering. But this series was fantastic. This was a Tom King book. Really, really good. Very underrated as well. But there's something about this cover, especially the Virgin version of this, like with that cat's head, it just super pops. And if you know me, you know I'm a cat person and I have rescue animals. So this cover really spoke to me on a few different levels. But I just loved this book and this cover. I thought was a great representation of the series.
Yeah, I was surprised you didn't have ferals in your horror, Chris.
It's a number 4 on my list. It was number 4.
Okay.
All right, now this is an underrated series for sure. This is the Oddly Pedestrian Life of Christopher Chaos. I don't know how to describe this book. It's James Tynion. I can't think of what Bromble's first name is, but it's kind of like Universal Monsters meets the 21st century. Like you have all those characters and those tropes going. But this particular issue, this is the arc of where Adam Frankenstein comes from, and that's Frankenstein embracing his creator. Gorgeous cover, especially because this is done by Dark Horse. It's done on actually a really nice kind of, I don't want to call it a foil paper, but when you see this cover in person, it really pops because the light is able to hit off of that paper they use just so well. But I thought this was just a gorgeous cover. And then this is my first of 2, I believe, 2023 picks. But this is Universal Dracula number 3. This is the Tedesco variant. Fun fact, I like this cover so much, I don't even own it because I couldn't get one because everybody at the shop wanted it, and I just gave my copy away. But I really liked this classic Dracula look with the brides and everything behind him. Tedesco just kills it anyway. But I mean, I thought this was a fantastic book for a fantastic series.
We got to find you a cover of that, Chris.
I'll get one eventually.
And then Brandon.
All right. So this one might be a little bit of a cheat because it was a 1-in-10 ratio variant, but I couldn't resist having this on my list because it was such a great callback to Department of Truth number 1 with the JFA cover. And then starting off this Marilyn Monroe with the same cover for issue 25, which is a big deal anyway for an indie series like this. I mean, just the callback and everything, and then it just stunning to look at, like most of Simmons' stuff. So, and then we got Zatanna Bring Down the House number 4, Joel Jones. Pretty much everything Joel Jones does is great, but this cover just really captured what this issue was about, the toxic relationship between John Constantine and Zatanna. But just kind of a sexy, like real good cover for those 2 characters.
That series had fantastic B covers the whole way through.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I'll also say, like, I think Joelle's like would have won it for me last year with her Dracula cover.
I think she did win it for me last year.
Yeah.
All right, number one is Hellblazer Dead in America 7B by Martin Simmons. I mean, it's Martin Simmons, so of course I'm going to love it regardless, but this just captures the essence of this series so perfectly. I mean, so you got the American flag draped over John Constantine. I mean, it's about the American tragedy. You have Constantine there looking like he's almost dead, which is kind of a big plot point for this book. You have Dream over Constantine when one of the big things is Constantine trying to get the grains of sand back that he stole from Dream on Sandman. So, I mean, just this whole cover just completely captures what this book is about.
Yeah, very cool to see him wrapped up in the flag too. That's crazy. Okay, Jimmy. Jimmy's pulling
Well,
out the Zatanna.
yeah, here we go. Here's Zatanna. I just thought Jenny Frison just did an amazing job on this. And actually, this cover is hanging up in the shop. But I just love the way, like, look at the color, the black just blends in with the stars, the doves, and I don't. It's just a great piece, and I don't know if this is her first Tana, but it just turned out so well. And so this was definitely my number 3 pick.
I remember the number 2 also had a great Terry Dodson cover that I picked up, and I was like, oh, it's sad they came out like on the same day. I was like, I picked up one, but I was like, oh, Dodson's so good too.
Okay, my number 2 pick is Harley Quinn 38E by Sozameka. She killed this cover. And I remember when this cover came in, you couldn't even find it. It was gone immediately. And I think this cover kind of kicked off the whole Western cover that you'll be seeing a lot of other covers coming up of, and it influenced other covers that came out after this. But I mean, this look, the black, the white, her as a cowgirl. I mean, it kind of reminds me of even Sin City with Jessica Alba kind of vibe. But just beautiful colors. I don't even collect Harley Quinn, but this cover just really grabs you. So she did a great job on this, and plus she's a fantastic artist. So okay, well, Chris should love this.
And I do too.
When I saw this cover, I mean, Panosian, like if you know anything about Panosian lately, he has been killing it on covers. What grabbed me on this was the dark, the gritty. I mean, Captain America's shield bloody, but look at Doom. I mean, he is like this is Doom at its best. And this cover really grabbed me just in a way. Like as soon as I saw it, I'm like, okay, this is probably one of the best covers I've seen out of Panosian. And for me, it was the best cover of the year. It speaks to me at things to come too. I mean, this is setting up a lot of things, and I don't know. I just had to make this my number 1.
Yeah, it's a great pick. Yeah, you're right. Panosian's got some great covers coming up. I keep seeing more and more stuff. Wouldn't be surprised if he's like tops on a lot of lists next year too.
Still would have been nice to have got that commission from him.
I knew you were going to bring it up.
I know. Yeah, just sour grapes. Yeah. Don't know. Chris and Brandon were both trying to get some commissions from him, and he had a little bit too good of a time to be able to do that. So
I mean, at least he admitted that he was too drunk to be able to do it. So I mean, give him props that he was able to admit it.
that's true. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Awesome picks.
I mean, that kind of sounds like he might owe us a little bit. Maybe we need to get him here in the shop or something. I don't know.
Hey, there you go. So don't feel bad. I think it was Brandon that picked some that was like kind of hard to get because mine are all kind of that way. and I went, so I went with this cover, to, I, ran into this guy at Heroes, last year, and it was kind of one of those things, when you see this guy start doing some work, it just made you stop in your tracks and you're looking at what he's doing. Phenomenal work. Uh, Definitely check him out. This is like one of his first covers that he's been able to do, in in major comics, and it was New York Comic Con exclusive, that I'm getting. But I just love the line work on this and the retro style of it. I just think it's just perfectly crafted. I love the Women in Red Department of Truth covers. Just so good. So had to put this as my number three. Um, and then number two is also an exclusive that I had to order. I'm just such a huge Doctor Doom fan. And I was just, while Lieber Mayhew might not be my favorite person to meet personally, his art's amazing. And they did this, the one I have pictured is the black and white, but they also did a colored version of it also, that I got both of those. But just look at that belt buckle. I mean, come on. That's the best Doom belt buckle that's ever been drawn. So I guess it's my number two. And my number one is the Mark Spears Monsters. It just came out a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago. But this book was so far under ordered and everything. You can right now, from just 2 months ago, in terms of value, this book is going for like $150+. It's just crazy that this book, but Mark Spears has a whole bunch of different like homage covers he's doing for this Monsters series. But the Sexy Bride of Frankenstein won it. But just in terms of like how quickly hyped up and how much it's gone up in value in just a short time, that's why I made it my number one. So and there's all of our lists. So got a lot of Department of Truth making some appearances there. And I think it says one thing, like Tynan has been specific and careful about who he has to do covers for some of his stuff. He's definitely doing a good job with that.
On 3 of the list out of 4.
Okay. All the single issues. All right, we got best single issue that's coming out. Starting off with Chris.
All right, we're gonna go with Rare Flavors. This was Ram V. Philip Andrade. This was the follow-up series to the Many Deaths of Layla Starr. They are not connected, but this was their follow-up project to that. Rare Flavors, think of it, Anthony Bourdain meets Indian culture, Indian like lore. I'm not gonna describe this right, but the series as a whole was really good. But it didn't feel like Many Deaths of Layla Starr. And if you've ever read that series, it's one of the best series you will read. It felt, I don't want to call it a letdown because it was good, but it wasn't until this issue came out, and this is the last issue, that everything clicked. It all made sense. And you saw the big picture of what they had done with this series. And it makes the whole other 5 issues completely your perspective change on them. This was easily one of the best things that I read all year. The way Ram V can capture emotion in a person, but not only in the emotion in the characters, but in yourself. Like you will feel things when you read this book. It's just that good. So I went with Rare Flavors number 6. All right, I know Adam said this book was underrated, but Avengers Twilight number 1, this is essentially, as much as I don't want to use this comparison, it's the Dark Knight Returns meets the Avengers. The first issue was fantastic. It's got a major, a pretty big event that goes right on in the first issue with the death of a character. Like this issue just sets up the ride that is the whole series and really gets it off on a high point. And I just can't say enough good things about it. it was about time that Marvel had a really like solid, well worth it to buy series, and it starts with this issue. And this is another 2023 book for me, but like I said, we'd already done the show, but this was a fantastic issue. You can say whatever you want about Tom King. I don't care. I will defend Tom King all day. I don't have a problem with it. And I am someone who actually has cussed out Tom King. So just keep that in mind. I've since apologized. I want to caveat that. But I love Tom King. He's one of my favorite writers. I know he's a controversial pick, but this issue, the Wonder Woman run itself has been fantastic. But this issue, the premise of the story is essentially Wonder Woman is, I don't want to say she's at war with the US, but she is not welcome in the US nor any of the other Amazons. And there's a sick child whose only wish is to see Wonder Woman. And Wonder Woman doesn't care that she's not welcome in the US or anything, because she realizes that this thing for this child is more important than what she has going on, what the US has going on with her. And they show this, and it's such a wonderful issue. It focuses on the humanity that we should all have towards one another and the compassion that we should have. And if you don't think 4 is worthy of being number 1, on the best single issues, number 14 from this series is also a fantastic issue as well. So.
Okay, and then we have Brandon. Speaking of Wonder Woman,
Chris gave me a
14.
really good segue there on that. As
They
he
do
was
not
saying,
see each other's lists. Yeah.
as he was saying, I mean, just King is doing wonders with this series, and this issue, it hits hard. I mean, the way that he just depicts grief, the stages of grief in it, and I mean, also, I mean, with it all leading to a beautiful thing with the birth of Trinity, I mean, it's just, I really don't know how to describe this properly because it's that beautiful of an issue. All right, next, Hellblazer Dead in America number 5. As I was saying when I was describing the Martin Simmons cover, part of this book is about the American tragedy, what America should be, what America is not, where it went wrong. This book, this issue, has 3 stories in it. First, kind of describing how we treated the Native Americans, the consequences, how they're suffering now. The next one has to do with the homeless. Homelessness is a huge issue right now. And then the third story is kind of like a fun thing with a kind of a monster type Comic-Con thing, and which ends in somebody being a chupacabra. So it deals a little bit with American legends also like that. But it just really is a powerful issue. And next is Department of Truth number 27, the end of a Marilyn Monroe storyline. Holy shit, after I read this issue, I had to set for a question if I was real. I mean, this issue will make you question everything about reality. It's that well written, and I mean, it's just, like I say, I mean, I like to have real, like, the stuff and messes with your head. Obviously, I'm a Twin Peaks fan, Westworld, stuff like that, and that is something that really messes with your head and makes you question everything.
Okay, awesome. Jimmy.
Okay. Well, this category was actually really hard for me because, I mean, it's a whole year's worth of books, and you got to pick an issue that really grabbed you. So I'm picking Blood Hunt number 5. For me, this was a Dr. Doom mic drop moment. I mean, you kind of knew what was going to happen, but when Doom was asked to give the Source of Supreme power back, he was like, no. And I think this also, it sets up everything that's going to be coming out next year and the big storyline. But the fact that, Doom is still this devious mastermind and I mean, I thought this really brought him to the front of Marvel of like, okay, at this point, like, who's Thanos? Who's who's Galactus? I mean, no, we got Doctor Doom now, and this for me, this moment was like, okay, he's coming to play. So for that reason, that's why I like this. Second was Ultimate Spider-Man #1. And the reason why I chose this was for anybody who's been a Spider-Man fan over the last few years, this is the Spider-Man we've been wanting. And this was a Peter Parker who was married, happy, had kids. Yes, he still had some bad luck, but he was in a good place. And when this is an issue, I mean, when he was given the spider, he's made that choice to become Spider-Man. It wasn't put upon him. He made this choice to take on this responsibility. And we've always wanted this Spider-Man, and Marvel hasn't listened, but now we finally got this version. And so it really got me, and I was like, this is who I was hoping to get for a long time. And my #1 is Absolute Batman #1. And the reason why is because I think for a long time we've always known who Bruce Wayne was: rich playboy, parents killed, becomes a vigilante. This issue, it turned everything on its head. I mean, this was not the Bruce Wayne we knew. And he was not rich, didn't have the resources. And this guy is just a bruiser. I mean, and it's violent, and he is like a 250-pound, 6'5" guy who just is going out there, and he's making his own equipment. He doesn't have a Lucas Fox making him things. I mean, this guy is like piecing together stuff. And so I'll be honest, the first issue blew me away. And I know we're only 2 issues in, but I mean, this was a take on Batman I haven't quite seen before. And it really grabbed me from this first issue. So I'm looking forward, to see what they're bringing down the pipe. So.
Yeah, awesome. For me, you'll also see my #3, Absolute Batman, for a lot of the things that Jimmy just said. I thought it was interesting, Jimmy, what you were just talking about. It was like Ultimate Spider-Man was kind of like the Spider-Man you wanted to have, because they kind of strayed too far. And Batman's been kind of doing the same thing, and this was kind of like a total opposite take on him. In a lot of ways. And, like you said, just great first issue coming out of the gates, and had a lot of information on the relationships with all the Batman characters are different. And it's just interesting to see where they go with everything. So, definitely, surprised. It's kind of funny how, like, I think the Ultimate Spider-Man's been better than the Amazing Spider-Man, and the Absolute Batman's been better than the regular Batman. We'll see what happens if that continues. But yeah, great for #3. My #2, as I'm a big Doom fan, I had to go with this. When I was thinking about best single issues, of course you want to think about like one shots and things like that come out. And this was kind of my favorite one shot. The art in it is phenomenal. And the story by Hickman can do no wrong in terms of writing, in my opinion. But he's written a great story. It's a great one shot. It starts off really strong, and just a really interesting take on the character. And I'm beginning to wonder if, like, the success and the how they put that book first before they did all that stuff, leading up to One World of Doom, with Blood Hunt and all that stuff, just the popularity of that Doom #1, I'm thinking might have influenced some of that kind of stuff to be like, oh yeah, everybody wants more Doom. So I was excited about that. And then my number one pick is Redcoat number 7. So I got to give some props to Brandon here, because Brandon was like, "You need to be reading Redcoat, man." And so it wasn't till that long ago that I actually, got to pick up all the issues of Redcoat. But if you like history, the character is kind of he's kind of a misfit, kind of anti-hero in a lot of ways. But it's a guy that just can't die. But this issue is kind of interesting. Earlier on in the series, you get to see that the Redcoat character is friends with Albert Einstein as a boy. And then he goes back, and this issue is dealing with not big, not to spoil anything too much, but Albert Einstein is much older and kind of in the hospital, not doing well. And this is kind of him going back. But in terms of dealing with something with grief, and coming across a person, a friend of yours that you haven't seen in a long time, and then seeing that they're dying and all this kind of stuff, the emotions that were put into that was just so strong that I was like, oh, I got to make that my number one, because it definitely brought some big feels out of me, which doesn't happen a whole lot. But that was a great issue. I'm excited to see where it goes from there.
That was definitely close to being on my top 3.
Okay, interesting.
It was close, but
So there's our list for best single issues. Any other comments? No?
And just so people know too, we not only Adam had seen most of our lists in advance, so the rest of us don't know them. And just so you know, if you're watching and you're wondering, there are 5 categories left. And these are the big categories.
These are the big ones. So best ongoing series. These series may last longer than you. We have Chris starting off.
I think we've talked about it. Just it's 2 issues in, and this book is fantastic. I'm not going to say anything better than anybody else has said about this book. So if you're not reading this book, it's the number 1 selling book in the store. That should tell you all you need to know. Pick this book up. It's really well worth the pickup. Okay, this is a low-key controversial pick, but this is my pick. Of all of the Marvel books that I read, and I didn't pick just because it was a Marvel book, this is the one that I enjoy the most. It's got constant action, this last story arc. I think it's better than Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man starts off with a lot of action, kind of mellows in this current arc, whereas Black Panther sets it up and is really just taken off in this arc. And then you heard me talk about it. Wonder Woman. It's got 2 of my top issues of the year in this on this book. King, Sampri. I mean, this book is fantastic. If you're not reading it, you are really missing out on something. It is one of the best sellers in the store. We've never in the store's history or 10 years had a Wonder Woman book doing 20 plus copies an issue. So that should really say something. And a lot of comic fans, whether they like King or not, are liking this book.
Chris, I can't believe you picked a Marvel book. Ow.
Credit where credit is due.
All right, Brandon.
all right. Number 3, Wonder Woman. Chris described it pretty good. I mean, there's not been one bad issue of this series. I mean, it's almost the top of my read pile every time it comes out. And I mean, like 14, what I was saying about that, great issue. And then even the tie-in issues for Absolute Power, I mean, those were great, fun issues with Wonder Woman teaming up with Damian Wayne, which was as fun as what it sounds like it would be. Next is the Ultimates. It's just been so different from other Marvel team books that I've read before. And I like the different twist on all the characters. Each issue's been great. I've struggled not to put any Ultimates issues on my single issues list, but the thing is, each issue has been so good, I could not pick just one issue. And then Department of Truth by Tinian and Simmons. This has probably been my #1 series since it came out. I mean, it has everything. I mean, conspiracy theories, cryptids, UFO cover-ups. I mean, just like I said, makes you question reality. And to me, that's what makes something great.
Okay, Jimmy.
Okay. Number 3, Absolute Batman. Again, what everybody is saying is that this Batman book just grabs you. It's amazing. It's such a new take on Batman. And I think it's, even though it's 2 issues in so far of the year, I think we have a lot more good things coming, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. Popular choice, Wonder Woman. I think what I really liked about this book too is that, the dialogue in this, you're getting the viewpoints of different characters in this, and they're like, it's almost like they're writing a history of what's going on. And it's I've never picked up a Wonder Woman book, and this Chris recommended this. One of the people that works at the store, Benjamin, recommended this book, and so I actually went back and got the back issues of this, and have been reading it. And it does, this book is fantastic. It's probably one of the best Wonder Woman runs that that's ever been made. And you really get inside her head too, what's going on. And she's a very complicated character once you actually start learning about her motivations, and that she is a warrior, but she has this heroic side to her. And it's simply been fantastic. And shouldn't come as a surprise, Ultimate Spider-Man for me. And I did hear this week, and Chris isn't the only one who said, it's been kind of slowing down. The action hasn't gotten, it's not really met its peak yet. But also, but again, I just want to say that this is a Spider-Man that a lot of Spider-Man fans have been really wanting. And also that, it's a unique take, that it was Aunt May that died, and Uncle Ben is the one that's alive. And you actually get to see in this series, like, how intelligent Uncle Ben is, and his reporter skills, and the dynamic between him and J. Jonah Jameson. I mean, that is just fantastic. It's one of the best things about the book, is their dynamic with each other, and they're almost like the odd couple of comics. And they know each other so well, they almost finish each other's sentence. And so I've been enjoying that. But just the relationship between Mary Jane and Peter, and even the kids, the fact that they all know he's Spider-Man. And I think I even enjoyed the last issue that I've read, where Mary Jane's like, you'll tell me, right, when it gets dangerous, and it's getting too dangerous. And he's like, I think I'll know when that is, but I'll tell you. And just that whole, she's approving of all this, and the danger that she knows, that there is real danger that he's being put in. But she also knows that he has to do this because of the responsibility. So I've enjoyed this so far. It's the Spider-Man I've wanted.
Now, what I really want in that book, Jimmy, is that there is a box of rice that is titled Aunt May instead of Uncle Ben rice. That there's Aunt May rice in this universe. All right, my best ongoing, #3, Absolute Batman. Like you said, only with a couple issues out. I'd be curious if we had like 8 or 9 issues of this current year. Like, it could have very well been the top of everybody's list this year. I think we just haven't had enough to go off of yet. But excellent start. Number 2 has surprised me. Again, thanks Brandon for turning me on to this, but Redcoat has just been excellent. Just a solid book. I was just watching an interview with Jeff Johns and Brian Hitch. It was on Comic Tropes if you want to check it out. But they already have about 150 issues planned for this. So they've written everything in their minds for the first 50, but they're like, that's only getting to the first part of the story. So and when you can get Jeff Johns on a book that he can do a lot with for a long time, like he did with Green Lantern and some of those other things, should be interesting to see where that goes. And my number 1 is Department of Truth as well. I just the whole JFK Marilyn Monroe things, there's always so much controversy and speculation behind all of that, but just how they handled that character of Marilyn Monroe and what all the stuff that they were leading into, just fascinating. Just, James Tynion, just amazing writing with all of that. So that, even though there hasn't been as many issues of that coming out this year because they took a little break, this arc has just been phenomenal. So and there's our best ongoings. A lot of Wonder Woman. I'm the one that's left out. I didn't pick Wonder Woman. And all right, I have a confession. I stopped at issue number 13. So I guess I gotta go back and pick up 14 and see where it's going. So
When I'm the odd one out, I didn't have Absolute Batman on mine.
oh, true. Yeah, true. Yeah. No Superman for you, Brandon.
Do what?
No Superman for you.
Oh, these other ones just were too good.
Yeah. All right, we got the best mini and maxi series. Short it may be, but powerful art. All right, Chris.
All right, this is one of my favorite categories. I love miniseries, so just so you know. But Avengers Twilight, we've talked about this book a few times. It is probably one of the best things I would say Marvel's put out in years. Zardesky just crushed it on this whole book. And the fact that it does center on Cap doesn't hurt for it coming from me as a pick. So Helena Windhorn. This was a book that started with very few subs, but it grew because, like I said, there's that Tom King hater effect, and I'm fighting against it. But this is one of the most gorgeous books you will see. This is the same creative team from Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, but it was fantastic. If you want a fantasy book and you like things like Lock and Key, this is going to be the book for you. It is gorgeous the entire way through. I was a little iffy on the end, but after talking with Brandon and Adam about it, like completely changed how I looked at the ending of the book, which made the series that much better for me because I was on the fence. I was like, I don't think they hit the ending. But then when we talked about it, I was like, no, they got it. And that's why this book is so good, because of that. But this is one of the most beautiful books you will read. You need to pick this book up. And then here's a shocker. Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. Like I said, this has been the indie darling of horror for the last 2 years. I know a lot of people had it as their best books for last year. So it's no surprise that it's on my list for this year. What Patrick Horvath did with this book cannot be you can't really state just how big this book is. And I know our shop's is a big 2 shop, but this was an indie book that every issue it grew. And then if you don't want an example of how popular this book, ask Jimmy how many variants for this book there were at New York Comic Con. And it was over when New York happened. So, but that's my list.
Yeah, it was the hype train for sure. Yeah.
And there's a follow-up coming out next year. So
yes. Brandon.
All right, so coming in at number 3, Helen of Windhorn. Chris described it perfectly. I mean, it's beautifully illustrated. I mean, the character work in it, the way it describes grief, of family coming back together. I mean, just so much going on, so beautifully written and drawn. So coming in at number 2 is Gods. The way that you all have been praising Avengers Twilight, that's how I feel about Gods. To me, this is the best thing Marvel has done in a very, very long time. And of course, I mean, as Adam said, Hickman pretty much can do no wrong, but he perfectly balanced world building with character work on this. I mean, the way, like, when and I didn't want to mispronounce her name, Adam. How would you say Akiko, or how
I
would
think
you?
so. That's yeah.
Okay, but yeah, the like essentially, I mean, this is a cosmic world building story, but at the heart is also a love story. And I mean, it's just the way he balanced everything in this was just amazing. And then work by Valerio Schiti, I mean, he does amazing stuff, anything that he's drawing. And then the way like he depicts.
Didn't Gods get canceled? I don't think so. Did it?
No, I not from what I heard read in an interview with Hickman. I mean, he said it has the possibility of coming back, but he ended it where he wanted to end it, is what I read in an interview with him.
I thought they solicited it as a 12-issue series.
No, not originally. I think it was originally supposed to be a 6 issue or 7. What? Yeah, something like that.
All right, well, sorry for throwing you under the bus.
Hey, I'll pick you up, Brandon. I thought Gods was great too, and just great story. I want more done with those characters that they started, and I need more of that. So,
And then it should not be a surprise with how much I've been talking about this tonight, but Hellblazer Dead in America, I mean, I can't really say much more than what I already have. I mean, just an amazing series. Constantine, best he's been written, and the way it balances all the horror. I mean, ties back to a lot of old Vertigo stuff and everything. I mean, it's just beautiful.
okay, Jimmy.
Oh,
You just muted yourself.
okay. I don't really read a lot of miniseries. And actually, a lot of the miniseries I've read haven't been that great. But I was very impressed with Frankenstein. I love the angle that they took, where it's they took like parts of him that to make up the monster, and there's the story behind the parts of him, his hands, his brain, so on, his body. I thought it was a unique kind of take on explaining how he came to be. So I thought all the Universal Monster books were pretty decent. But I thought this was just a pretty unique take on that. And so I enjoyed it. And I know it's Marvel, but I actually enjoyed this series, just because I thought it was, I like the way that Blade was kind of at the center of it. I like the way that we got a lead into Doom coming into power. And then we still had we had some characters who were turned, and may still be that way. I mean, we're kind of seeing what happened after this. But and I know it was Marvel kind of copied off of DC with their DC versus vampires, but yeah, I just I like vampires. I've always enjoyed those kind of stories, and I enjoyed Marvel's take on it, and I know there's going to be repercussions from this coming out, and I look forward to that.
Brandon loved that last page as a Doctor Strange of issue number 1 too.
Do what?
I said, as a fan of Doctor Strange, you love that last page of issue number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a Doctor Strange fan, there's a lot, and I was not a fan.
Okay. Well, my number 1, I really liked Absolute Power. one, because it was, I know that the heroes in the DC universe have always, they've had, problems before, or there looked like a situation like, oh no, how are they going to get out of this? But from the very get-go of issue 1, I was like, I've never seen them get this defeated before. I mean, it was an utter trouncing. I mean, Superman was in the first issue was just completely knocked out, done. And the fact that Amanda Waller, you kind of through this year, you've got this sense that she was, they hinted at it that she was up to something, and it all came to this, and I just really, it blew me away at how you saw some of those most powerful heroes in DC just get punished brutally, beaten, imprisoned. And it seemed like at every turn, like even Batman and some of the people that really have a strategy down were getting defeated at every turn. Every time they tried something new, it got shut down. So, and we're still actually, the repercussions of this are still in DC, because some of the powers got mixed up. We don't some new interesting takes on different powers, who has what. Some people's powers got swapped. So I'm kind of looking forward to where this leads into 2025, and the repercussions of, and of course this, all led into the All In that is now taking place. And yeah, I just thought it was a great series. It really drew me in. It was only 4 issues, but I mean, they had a lot of tie-ins and one-shots and miniseries off of this. But and even the tie-ins to this, I thought were really well done. So the task force was done well. So yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed Absolute Power.
Great. And my picks, number 3, I'm going to go with Grommets. Also a book that Chris turned me on to. But like I said, this if I can get that up there, maybe just need to get it towards me. Grommets, like I said, if you grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, I mean, I haven't read much that has like really pulled that time period perfectly as that. And there's so many like little references and things. I told Chris, I was like, oh man, they were talking about Pal Peralta boards and stuff. And I was like, I had one of those and I custom made my trucks and all that stuff on it. So I enjoyed reading about all that. And it's just a good, like, kind of coming of age and finding yourself kind of story. A little brutal in some parts, but that's what growing up a teenager in a new area and trying to make new friends and that kind of stuff is all about. So it's a great one, definitely worth picking up. I think there's only 1 issue left, maybe, and
1 issue left.
yeah, I think trade should be coming out soon. So definitely pick that up if you're interested. Number 2 for me was Somna. I talked a little bit about that earlier. Just really enjoyed that. And number 1 was also Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. So just kind of a perfectly written miniseries to capture a whole story together. So those were my picks.
Yeah,
Hey,
I really feel like the weirdo in this group.
you feel like the weirdo? No, not necessarily. But maybe. Yeah, you're on your own with all your picks, but there's nothing wrong with them. Okay, now we have Artist of the Year. My imagination is dead. I need pictures. All right.
All right, this is my struggle
Yes.
bus category. I will say I don't think there was one cover that really stuck out this year, for as far as covers go. But as far as it goes, I'm trying to pause because Adam ran off and he's not going to be able to advance this. But number 3, I went with Jenny Frison. Jimmy showed it off earlier. The Zatanna bringing down the house variant for number 1 they did was fantastic. The Harley Quinn covers that Jenny had done earlier this year, fantastic again. The Poison Ivy covers they're currently doing, every one of them we've gotten in the store is sold out. They are just stunning. And I know a lot of people say a lot of Frizzen stuff looks the same, and I kind of agree. But when you see good Frizzen, it really stands out above everything else they've done. And this year was a great year for Frizzen pieces.
And she knows she's heard of the store before, so that doesn't hurt.
That's true. Okay. This is the one Adam's probably waiting for. Tula Lote. Look, I said it right. I watched the video of you telling me how to say your name, and I got it right. But Samna. Samna was fantastic as far as the interior art went on the book. I didn't remember putting Come Find Me on there, but okay.
I put that on there because that was like
Yeah.
one of the most recent ones. Yeah.
And then Misty was a one shot. It's a European book, but it was brought into the US. Brandon, we have a copy of it at the store for you now, but it was a fantastic cover. But when you see Tula art, it really is something to behold. It's a different style than most things, and it really pops, and you could tell it apart from anything. And the sheer volume of work they've done this year is really, really good. And the nice thing is, too, they can do interior art. If you haven't checked out Barnstormers, definitely check that out with Scott Snyder.
Yeah, great series. Yeah, for the backstory, for those that are listening, Chris had pronounced her name wrong for a while. So I saw her at a con in North Carolina recently, and I made her do a video to tell Chris how to pronounce her name. So,
And then Bilquis Everly, I don't really, you have to look at the book, but when you see Helen of Windhorn and you recognize that they're doing both the covers, the interior art, it's just something to behold. It is a gorgeous book to look at. The color usage in the book, but just the images, especially when you get a splash page. I just can't say enough things about how gorgeous this book really is.
okay, great picks, Brandon.
All right, so Aaron Campbell, because of his interior work on Hellblazer: Dead in America, the way he captures the horror, the way he captures the emotion. I mean, it is just a beautiful book altogether to look at. Probably some of my favorite interior work in a long time. All right, Wario Shitty, Gods, as I said, the way he just depicted all of this cosmic insanity in Gods, I mean, it was something to behold. And then he's doing great interior work on Avengers now also. And then number one, Tula, a lot of the same reasons that Chris was saying, and I've did so many cover purchases just because of her this year. Books I picked up, I didn't even read the books. I just bought them because the cover she did was so gorgeous.
Yeah, I think you, me, and Chris are all guilty of that. Okay, Jimmy.
Okay, my number 3 is Pablo Villalobos. His cover work on a lot of the female characters, again, Birds of Prey, Catwoman, Poison Ivy, and he does a lot of exclusive covers as well. But his artwork is a lot like Adam Hughes, but there is just a really beautiful quality. The colors he chooses to use. And, just here are just some examples. We got that. I mean, this is a recent issue, Wolverine.
That was a great cover.
He just did Phoenix. I mean, look at this. This is just simply fantastic. Even just, B covers. And here's an exclusive, but he reminds me a lot of Adam Hughes, and just that beautiful quality he brings to the covers, the colors, the lines. And he's really doing a lot of covers this year. So he's my number 3. Okay. Again, Jenny Frizen. Her covers are just fantastic. The quality she puts into it. I even seen a recent video where even her detail of she will even like her eyes. She will individually like do the pupils or around the eyes where she'll draw each line out and to give the eyes more depth. So beautiful covers. Examples here's the Zatanna, GI Joe, uh, Scarlet Witch, um, recent X Factor she did, and then gorgeous Dazzler she recently did. So she just beautiful, beautiful work. So she's my number two. I know people. This is one that I personally love his work, and I picked him as number one because he has been everywhere this year. He's been on covers of GI Joe, Thundercats, X-Men, Action Comics. You know, Wolverine, Deadpool. He's done Spider-Man. You know, I don't know. He seems like, I mean, he's pumping out more covers than I don't just about anybody at the moment. Um, and I mean, I think that's all he has to do is covers. He's so popular, and actually, I've met him in person several times. He is one of the nicest people you ever want to meet. He absolutely super appreciates people buying his stuff, and he's great to talk to. And so here's just some examples of him. You know, this is a GI Joe, uh, Rogue. Rogue. Recent action, um, Wolverine, uh, Phoenix. You know, I mean, Deadpool. Just beautiful cover. Psylocke. Um, there you go. There's Damien. Um, Spider Woman. So I think his volume of work this year has been just overwhelming, and I just get a really kick out of all his covers. So
Great,
If you
awesome.
don't recognize Nakayama's name, it is DNA on the covers.
Yeah, he always signs the DNA. Yeah. Okay, I have a little caveat for my category of artist of the year. So one thing, like I love a lot of the people that you picked as well, but when I was thinking about this, I was like, man, they got to do some interior work. I want to see them do some interior. So everybody that I picked does interiors as well. So my my number three, and this is more just based on one book. Chris is like shocked because I know he's not a Kelly Jones fan. But just look at that cover. And I love he's kind of like a little bit of a successor to Bernie Wrightson for me. And if there are issues of Dracula, they're doing I think about 5 books in this Dracula series, which is taking the original story of Dracula but telling stories that kind of go around it. So this first volume is all like Vlad the Impaler kind of stuff. This next year they have some ones that are going to be all related to the Brides of Dracula and stuff like that. So the art is just fantastic in it, and I'm just thinking like for Kelly Jones, and I know some people are a little mixed on who he is. I think this is ultimately when those 5 books get done, I think they're going to be it's going to be known as like this is some of the like the best kind of horror art that there's been of our kind of modern generation of art. So that's why I put him on the list. I know he has done a lot of stuff, or some of his other covers have been kind of a little iffy with some of the things he's done for DC sometimes, but that book is just fantastic. Number 2 for me is Dan Mora. Um, I don't know if Dan Mora gets enough props for how much he does on a single page. But all the stuff that he did with, Absolute Power, the DC All In special, I mean, there's so many characters, but he does just such a phenomenal job on any project that he ever does. And the quality of his work. He's also done a lot of other covers, I think, some variants this year. But you give him a full book, he's going to do great things with it. So really enjoyed Dan Mora this past year with what and DC's kind of put him at the forefront right now with giving him kind of like the biggest book to lead into a whole new line. They're kind of like, okay, Dan, I think you can handle this. And then my number one, we've heard from a few others, also Tula Lotte. Just her, like Chris said, her work is very different. Her watercolor and paint style that she does is just phenomenal. And to see how much she can crank out for all of these covers and doing interior work for other books and things like that. And she's got a lot of other stuff lined up in the future. That like we said, she's kind of made us guilty of buying a lot of things that we didn't necessarily need to have, but because she's on the cover doing a cover for it, had to pick it up. So those are my picks. Jimmy's odd man out with no Tula, so we got to get him on the Tula train. Great list. Okay, writer of the year. We got Chris.
All right, this is my favorite category. I do enjoy this category a lot. Definitely easier for me than artist. Starting off with Scott Snyder, he's a go-to name. But between Dark Spaces, Dungeons, I was kind of on the fence if he'd make my final cut list. But when Absolute Batman came out, it became a no-brainer. But yeah, Scott Snyder definitely doing it as far as the writing goes.
Hey, I know that guy.
I'm aware.
Oh yeah, Jimmy's
Tell
got
him to
pictures
call
of
me.
him.
Next up, we've got Patrick Horvath. We have talked about the Beneath the Trees book multiple times already. Multiple people have talked about it. A lot of people, I think, recognize him for his art, but this story is fantastic, and it makes you want to read or look at the book as you're reading the story. And then Tom King. I told you, I'm a Tom King fan. I will apologize for whatever you want to blame him for, Heroes in Crisis, Batman, but Wonder Woman, fantastic. Animal Pound, fantastic. Helena Windhorn, fantastic. He really did nothing wrong this year as far as art goes, other than being named Tom King, which meant people didn't read it, which you should. And we have all of them at the store.
I also want to point out how different those books are. Those three that you mentioned, very different.
You have superhero, you have, we'll call it a fiction on its best case, and you have fantasy. 3 different genres.
Okay, Brandon.
All right, so Tom King, Wonder Woman, Helen of Windhorn, both, like you said, completely different series, both extremely well done. And then his first issue of Black Canary came out a couple weeks ago. Fantastic first issue. I feel like we really have something special coming with that series too. Number 2, Jonathan Hickman. As me and Adam both mentioned earlier, it seems like this guy can do no wrong. And in the past, I've heard him be criticized about how he's great at world building, great at stories, but lacks at character work. This year, he proved everybody wrong with that with Gods and Ultimate Spider-Man. He proved that he can write characters and write extremely good characters too. And then plus, he's still doing the Free Worlds, Free Moons on Substack and doing some crazy stuff over there. So. And then number 1, if you know me, this should not be a surprise at all. James Tynion, Department of Truth, one of the best series out there. World Tree, Deviant, all amazing series. He's done good. He's continuing to do good with Something Is Killing Children, House of Slaughter, that whole universe. And like I say, he cannot put out a bad book, in my opinion.
Okay, Jimmy.
Okay. Philip Kennedy Johnson. Um, Again, what he's doing on Incredible Hulk right now, probably one of the best Incredible Hulk runs I've read. He's turned that character, into just this, or he's put him into a whole world, new world of these monsters and this ancient, beings who are after him, and then with Crocodile Black. I mean, this crime kind of drama with this kid, um, who has a mental illness, and it really resonated with me. And I actually got to meet him here at the shop. Um, he is a fantastic person as well. I enjoyed meeting him and his family. He is also, he's military, so that was something else I enjoyed about him. But his writing, his characterization is on point. You really start caring about the characters, and yeah, I can't say enough good things about him as a writer and as a person. So, next, Jonathan Hickman. Again, for me, a lot of it was Ultimate Spider-Man, because we've hated Zeb Wells for so long that we welcomed somebody to write a good Spider-Man, and I know he's written other things, and actually when I was putting this list together, I knew he had done some other things I just couldn't remember, but for me it was the Ultimate Spider-Man, and again that dynamic he has with the characters, with Mary Jane and Peter's relationship, with Uncle Ben and J. Jonah Jameson's relationship, even with Harry and Gwen. I mean, it's just really weird, but yeah, I really enjoyed his writing on this book, and it's can't wait to see what Craven's coming in that book too. So looking forward to that. And for me, Joshua Williamson, I mean, he's spearheaded this whole Energon stuff. I mean, Cobra Commander, GI Joe, Duke. He's been putting all this together. And then not only is he doing that, but he did Green Arrow, and which that book, like I said, has been fantastic. And on top of that, he's spearheading the All In, and he did Absolute Power, and so he's all over the place. He's writing multiple books, for different companies, and yeah, I just his storytelling, his reimagining of GI Joe, and that whole universe has been just fascinating. But I look forward to what he's going to be doing with DC. What these new stories are coming with the All In, and so yeah, I thought he just did so many different projects this year, that I had to make him my number one.
Okay, great. For me, I'm going to put Becky Cloonan on the list as my number 3. When she's done some like little short pieces and some other things this year, but like Hello Darkness and a couple other little one shots that she's done with Distillery, and Somna, of course. But it seems like everything that I've been reading of her lately, she is just really doing it right. So I've just had writers were something I actually struggled with to try to figure out who I would put in this category. But I was just looking at, like, I haven't read anything by her this current year that I didn't love. So gave her number 3. Number 2, I was gonna put Jeff Johns on the list. He's I think has a real I don't know if it's a resurgence or something, but what he's doing with all the Ghost Machine books that he's writing has just been amazing, and I'm just excited to see where they go. Redcoat has been great, as I've said. I don't read the current Geiger, but I read the older Geiger series, and Hyde Street's been just a couple issues, also been really great for like a neat kind of twisty horror book. But Really excited to see where, it's amazing how much work that he can crank out there. And then number one for me is also James Tynan. Just like Brandon said, you're not going to find a bad book that he's written. And all of the stuff that he's been putting out, I mean, the writing's been phenomenal. He's got plans. Wish they'd be just a little more consistent, but he's got like so many books that he's writing that it's got to be hard to be him. So, but you just know if you see his name associated with a book, it's like an easy pull. I don't care if he's writing about belly button lint; it's going to be the most exciting belly button lint story you've ever read. So, anyway, so those are our picks. Got a few Tom King lovers. Hickman, Tynan, a lot of them came up there. And hopefully Philip Kennedy Johnson will watch this and be like, yeah. As a friend of the
Black
store.
was a fantastic book.
Yeah, very different. Yeah.
I've always felt bad for him because his Superman was right when Tinian came on the scene, and I just don't think he gets the credit he deserves.
Hey, he personally made me get the World Series, and that was great. I mean, I'm usually not a big Superman fan, but it's like, whew, yeah, that was great. Brandon, were you saying something?
I was going to say, yeah, his Action Comics is some of the best Superman I've ever read, I think. I mean,
okay.
and he's doing real good with Robin now, too, and he's taking that over. So,
okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Best comic of 2024. This is the big one. This is what people fight for, is to get this golden trophy, this golden floppy, and see what they're going to do with it. So this is usually kind of like out of the mini and maxi and horror and everything else. Like these are our big picks for the best for the year. So Chris, start us off.
All right, we're going with Helena Windhorn at number 3. I think we've talked about this book. I know I personally talked about it and how much I enjoyed it. If you've not checked it out, you really need to check this book out. It is coming out in hardcover early next year. So, Wonder Woman, another book we have talked about. My list normally don't put big twos usually in the best comics, which should tell you how good this book really is. It's coming out single issue form. There's 2 trades out already. So if you're very curious about this book, you could definitely catch up on this book. It is fantastic. It's both well written, and the Daniel Sampry art is amazing. But all the fill-in artists on this book are great because Tom King always works with great artists. This should be no surprise. It was the indie darling of last year. I think it was my best book last year. It's my best book this year, Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. Super excited about this book. I can't wait for the follow-up. I'm very excited for that. But if you've not checked this book out, it is out in trade now already. Check it out. It's one of the best things you will read, especially if you like a horror book.
Okay, Brandon.
all right. So I got Gods. As I said earlier, in my opinion, this is one of the best books Marvel has done in a very long time. Just like this huge cosmic story going on in the background. And it's really a story about 2 characters that fell in love, fell apart, come back together. And to me, it had the perfect ending to what the story was. And then number 2, Hellblazer Dead in America. Probably the only reason this is not my number 1 is because I just want to see what this last issue it's coming out. I think this week's going to be and how they're going to wrap it up. But I've talked about this book a lot, and it has just been fantastic. Then number 1, Department of Truth. As I said, my number 1 book for a long time now. But Tinian told me last time I saw him at a signing that he is taking some of the biggest swings of his career on from issue 23, it came out this year going forward, and you can definitely see he is taking some huge swings with this book now, and it is paying off.
Okay, great. Jimmy.
Okay. I wanted to just kind of throw a little monkey wrench in here because I hadn't mentioned this book really before. I almost wanted to put Absolute Batman on here, but I just felt like, 2 issues in, it still had something to prove. But the whole Energon universe that's been happening for me, has been fantastic. And Transformers, was something that I watched this cartoon when I was a kid. It was one of the Saturday morning cartoons that I always got up for to watch. And so to see this Transformers kind of reimagined, it just really brought back a lot of nostalgia for me. I always want to read this book when it comes out. And I love how it ties into Void Rivals, and it's now tying into G.I. Joe. And but I wanted to pick a book that had been out all year, and I felt like it had proven, that like this whole thing that they're building in with the Energon stuff, it's really paying off, and a lot of people are paying attention to it. And but Transformers has definitely, it's a childhood thing for me. And number 2, Wonder Woman. Everything that I've said, that everyone else has said, it's probably one of DC's best books. And honestly, I would say it's probably one of DC's best books in a long time. It got me reading it, which again, I said I haven't read Wonder Woman really before, even though there was some. I think there, back in the 80s, there were some, or 90s, there were some Wonder Woman runs that were good, but this book really captivated me. Just the characterization of her and her relationships with other people in the DC universe, even with Superman and Batman. You get, even from this, you get that friendship that they have, this bond that those three have. And I never, knew the depth of her relationship with Trevor, and with Steve Trevor. I didn't realize that their relationship was that deep. And this this series really kind of just her relationships is a big point of this book, and it really took me. So, and no surprise, Ultimate Spider-Man. Spider-Man's my jam. He's the character that, again, it's always a nostalgia for me. He's the character I got up to watching on Saturday mornings, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. And throughout the years, I felt like so many writers just, they wanted to punish Spider-Man. This whole bad luck, and they always got him in situations where, you just felt so bad for him. And they never really, it was more about like, how could they hurt him than make him, situations he was going through. It was like almost like a running joke in Marvel of like, how bad can we make it for Peter Parker? And this book kind of like said, nah, we're not going to do that. We're going to make it, he's got a good life. He's got a good situation. He doesn't have to do this. He's doing it because of that responsibility. He feels he has to help other people. And, it just speaks to the heroics of his character. So, for me, this was a Spider-Man that, I've been wanting for years after Quezada messed it up. And Zeb Wells, I could probably go on a whole list of other people that's messed him up, but I think they got a good thing going here.
All right, great. For my top 3, I'm gonna put Somnat number 3. Just really love that book. My number 2 is Department of Truth. I think we've said a lot about that one. And also my number 1, Beneath the Trees Nobody Sees. I just felt like, yeah, it's not I feel like that's a book that has kind of shaken things up in comics and been just like really hit with a splash, like Chris said, with the what happened with New York. That was the book to get, and when you get that kind of hype around something, but it's worth it. It was kind of like a little indie book, like nobody, like the little engine that could, that really paid off with a great story there. So those are our picks.
And I hope everybody enjoyed this. Like I said, this is something that I have gotten to do over the last several years on another channel. I have a lot of fun with it. Hopefully you enjoyed our picks as well. The nice thing about doing it with everybody that's in this group for us, these are all people that either help out of the shop or are customers of the shop. So this is a really shop-centered kind of list in a lot of ways. But if you have any questions, you want to check something out, ask us. We'll happily get it for you or show you where it is within the store. Almost everything we picked is either out in single issue or trade at this point. I can't thank the co-hosts enough of this. Adam put in a ton of work making all the slides and doing everything. Jimmy, Brandon. I don't think people realize how hard it is to do these lists. So if you don't like something on it, that's okay. But understand a lot of work goes into this. My list, I know personally, I started in December of last year. I know the others did not because we had kind of planned this a few months ago. But there's a lot of work that goes into this, and we really hope you enjoyed this. And if you did, give us a comment, give us a thumbs up, or mention it to us at the store, and let us know what you think of it, and maybe we'll do more things like this throughout the year.
Yeah, I also want to congrats to all the people that we picked. If happens to be any of those people catch this at any point, it's been a good year to comics are a great escape from a lot of the world that's going on, and there's been a lot of good books this year that has come out. So just want to again, congrats to all of those. Thanks everybody for watching. Be sure to come by the shop and pick up some things. I know, like, just from hearing what everybody else has been digging, I respect everybody's thoughts on this panel too. So it's given me some things to think about, like, ooh, do I need to pick this up? So I think that's one of the things that's exciting. Hopefully those that are watching this later will feel that same way. One thing to point out that we like to say a lot: we don't ship. So if you're watching this and you want to try to order this, sorry, but hit up your own LCS if you have something like that. But please come in the shop and try to shop around. And we the other employees of the store, have great recommendations too. But I think this is a good panel to work with. So anything else from anybody else?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, thank you for inviting me to do this. I've not done anything like this before, and so I appreciate you asking me my opinions on things. I'm probably a little more limited on what I read compared to most of you, but you gave me some things to think about too. I think I've got to definitely check out that Beneath the Trees. It sounds like that's I need to get on that. But
yeah, you met him, Jimmy. Yeah.
But anyway, and I just want to, this list was really hard because there's, so many good things came out this year, and it's not easy picking a list out of thousands of books that have come out and all the good writing and the art, and so it's not as easy as you think it is. But I appreciate everybody involving me.
Yeah, like Jimmy, I've never done anything like this before. I had a blast doing it. It was fun just sitting down and really thinking about, hey, what I like best. It's kind of like, good look at your own taste too in making the list. I enjoyed seeing everybody else's list, and definitely, like Jimmy, I'm going to have to check out Beneath the Trees now.
Oh yeah, you'd love it. Yeah. Any final thoughts, Chris?
Nope, I think that's it. All I'm going to say is make sure you read some comics.
I know, I was waiting for that. Great, great. Well shot.